AI, will it take over our jobs? Is it making our jobs easier? Is it making us lazy? And what's the real ROI of utilizing it as a business? We'll chat all about that in the main event. Hi, I'm Morgane F, and I'm the host of Young Black Misses. And let's jump into some segments. Shaking my curl. I'm shaking my curl. I'm shaking my curl. Shaking my curl. I'm shaking my curl. Shaking my curls. I think the biggest thing I'm shaking my curls at right now is just the uncertainty of how AI is impacting our society. And we talk a lot about in this episode, the business of it and how to use it for business. And, my guest is is a super user. She'll admit she's a super user. But what does that mean? Like, what does that mean for my daughter? Like, what is that going to look like in 30 something years? And then I always think to myself, well, technology continues to evolve. This is probably we're just in the flip phone stage of the situation. And I'm not saying it's dangerous. I'm talking about it. I'm a user of it. But I just often wonder what really can happen. What really can happen? I don't know the answers. I don't think anybody knows the answers. I'm not going to sway you either way, to use, to not to use. But what I will say is not I'm concerned, but what I will say is be thoughtful. Be thoughtful. Be thoughtful. Yeah. Be thoughtful of how you're using these tools. These tools are very helpful. These tools are very awesome. These tools can really open up opportunities, can really be a neutralizer, can really be an equalizer in a lot of spaces for people of color, for, marginalized groups of folks. I love that. But we're not 100% sure of all of its implications, all of its impacts, and how that will help or hinder society. So, more to come, I guess. That was really gloomy. I'm so sorry. Let's just get into the segment. Let's just get into the main event. Let's just liven it up. All right, here we go. Let's get back into part 2 of the main event with Whitney B, all about AI in the workplace. Is there anything else you want to cover?
No, that's good. That's good.
Okay, cool. Now for professional use, in your professional opinion, if you could just look through your little, predictive, magic ball, 8 ball or whatever, how soon, decades, years, do you think all companies will have AI? I say AI powered. How soon do you think all companies will be AI powered? Quotation marks for the listeners.
It's getting there. It's kind of hard to predict because things are moving at a rapid pace, but at the same time, things are not progressing in the Terminator fashion that people think that is happening. Like, I think people are seeing, earlier this year, LinkedIn had released a study and they talked about like the top trends for the year. And one of the big trends were big companies want to go beyond AI hype and they want to see AI use cases. Like, they really want to see what's the return on investment in these tools, because I think a lot of companies are adopting, but I don't think
Mm-hmm.
all have mastered truly getting their money's worth for using the tools. Tools break down, people leave, you have someone who might be the primary person. Like, there's so many other logistics that come with adopting these tools that I don't think that people have quite mastered yet. Like, I think it's going to
Mm-hmm.
be at least 3 to 5 years before people start to really feel a good rhythm with humans working alongside AI. Now, when it comes for the trends, I mean, like, I think everyone's going to start adopting it. Like, I actually just found out a few days ago, someone has shared with me, like, the state of Ohio where I live, they have a tech credit for small businesses. And the SBA defines a small business. It could be like 500 people or less. That's considered a small business. So, like in the state of Ohio, they have a credit where they will refund up to $2,000 per person in your company who take an AI training. So, the government is trying to make it more accessible, at least in Ohio. They're trying to make it more accessible for small businesses to take advantage of using new technology.
Mm,
So, and it wasn't just limited to AI, but AI was a really big portion of that. There are other kind of technologies that people are using. But to say the less, I think there's a big push in our country for people to do more with AI. There's more initiatives, even at the school level, where we're seeing a lot of it more incorporated with just like urban school districts, local school districts. So I just think that the adaptation of it is going to be fast, but I think the big question people are asking is, well, will it replace my job? Will it replace me? And I don't think people are replaceable, but I do think that people would be remiss if they did not take learning the skills seriously. Upskilling is going to
mm-hmm,
be really important. And
mm-hmm.
I don't think that jobs are going to be taken away. I think a lot of, well, some will, I think some will, but I think a lot of them will be refined and they're going to want people who know how to use the tools. Like, that's really what I think. Like, I think because I mean, I'm not going to say like it's impossible, like everyone's just going to lose their job, what's going to happen, because you never know, whatever can happen can happen. But I
Right.
think that the people who are ethically aware and and recognize the toll that this can take on society, I think they're going to find ways for humans to stay involved, but they're just going to change the role and how they are involved.
So I know we touched on a little bit about how your use case professionally for your daily tasks. You've mentioned the one the custom, no, is it the virtual assistant or what did we call it? Custom GPT that you created to
Agent,
help people with the emails and that sort of thing,
the
right?
agent. Mhm.
Okay, agent, the terms. You
It's
could
okay.
see I do not use ChatGPT. I use Gemini. So I'm like, I don't know the words. I'm like, it's bot. Da, da, da. But backing up for a hot second, this is two facing. First question would be how would someone just starting out just adapting and learning in a professional setting? Is it more just like let me master how to write these prompts, or is there something more to it?
I would say in a professional setting, you want to be careful depending on what industry that you are in. I always think that people should start with AI for smaller, manageable things that are not related to work, just so they can have the curiosity to learn more about it. I think sometimes when you're doing stuff for work, there's a certain pressure to get it right and to do certain things. So it kind of takes the fun out of it sometimes. So I would start there, but I would say if someone's really serious about starting for work, the first thing that you want to do is to check and see, does your company that you're working for have a policy? Like, what is their stance on AI and how you're able to use it? And if they don't have one, you want to be careful because again, like depending on your industry and depending what type of information that you are dealing with, you don't want to do anything that could put the company or your job at risk of anything. I would say if there is a company policy in place, and a lot of companies do have policies, and some of them are like, hey, like you can use AI, but you can only use Microsoft Copilot, or you can only use Gemini based on whatever their platform or email provider is. Like that's cool too. But I would still say, like, if you do have the capability and the permission, start with small, manageable tasks. Like, I wouldn't try to run the AI for a big project, right? Because it's too overwhelming to try to maintain the requirements of the project and try to learn at the same time. I think it's important for people to find those small things, like, have it write an email for you. Like, I would say start with one task every single day. Challenge you to do something different that you do the day before.
Yeah.
And then find other people who you work with who are also using it because that camaraderie allows people to share. And I find that when you have community around AI, that's really where a lot of the learning comes from. Just learning from other people's trial and error mistakes and having that
Hmm.
community to converse about with.
Gotcha. I know from, like I had mentioned a little bit earlier, so I don't know what year, maybe 21. I always had Grammarly on because I need help proofing my copy, right? And so I always had Grammarly on. But then as they started to evolve, Grammarly is a extension that'll help kind of proofread your content if you're not familiar. But as they started to develop, they had an AI component where you could write a prompt in. And a lot of times with the position I was in, I would have to do multiple copy of something kind of similar. So I would say, can you rewrite this and make it X amount of characters, right? And so that would help me cut down on some time. When I came, well, and I had a license for that, like it was a paid license, so people were aware that I was using it, right? But when I came back, but that was the only they didn't consider that AI. They considered it just like an extension, right? It was just like a tool, whatever. But when I came back from maternity leave, it was like no one can use ChatGPT. You can only use Copilot, right? At this job, right? So I'm like, okay, cool. And then again, titties was talking, boobs was hurting because we keep saying AI a lot as we continue to have these conversations about Copilot.
And
Um,
I'm like consciously holding myself, like, oh my God.
no, but like it's real, like because
Wow, that's so crazy.
it's just that's how the body works. It's crazy. But then it was just like it popped off. I went to this tech expo that we had, and that's all they were talking about. How they were, and I asked someone, I said, how long in the process have you guys been trying to incorporate AI? They said, oh, we've been pitching it for the past 3 to 5 years, but just now people are approving the use of it, right? And so, to your point about starting a new role, and seeing how the onboarding is with that, and having how they're teaching how to use incorporate this time ChatGPT. It's just so different thinking these are how we're using them now. From like a use case, since you're like a business owner and I'm like a contributor, I feel like there's a different vibe where you may be different uses for using AI. For me, it's like, yes, I started with just drafting email. Well, actually, I started with drafting emails because Gemini, right? Because this was just kind of proofing, right? And then once I saw, I was like, oh, let me prompt and see if it can duplicate what I was doing. And then after a while, I just would drop the whole copy in the work provided Copilot, and I would start saying, hey, summarize this for me as if I was a third grader or an eighth grader or a fifth grader, so I could pull little talking points off of it. And then I start having a conversation with it.
Hmm.
Um, to be able to pull what valuable information, summarizing it. And then at a certain point, I'd be like, okay, help me break this down into 3 takeaways for a carousel social media image, right? But like you said, it took a while for me to feel A, comfortable, B, like you were saying, like, oh, I don't want them to feel like I'm not doing the work. I wouldn't feel that way if I knew I had to have like a duplicate shorter version. I'm like, well, I'm just kind of saving time here.
Yeah.
But you're
Is I don't care what nobody says. Prompting is work. Like most people don't get the right prompt immediately. And even for you to get to those bullet points, it might have taken you 2 or 3 tries before you got what you really wanted.
Exactly. And that's when you're saying just using it the curiosity. I feel like I was the use case of what you're saying, because your girl was with the technology back in the day. I'm not gonna let you not have that, okay? But yeah, it's to your point, like that's the bulk of how I typically use it in professional setting. Just like talking to it. But I will say, Copilot would, and I'm sure Gemini. I don't think Gemini does this, but I don't have the paid version of it, so maybe I don't know. But I imagine ChatGPT probably does this too, where it just has little, hey, try this thing out. My favorite thing to do on Fridays was to say, recap my week as if it's like a comedy. I think I printed out, I don't have it. I printed out, like, when I left that job, I printed out, like, recap my time here as if it was an award show. Oh my God, that was the best. I know I printed out. I just don't know where it is right
Oh,
now.
I would like to
But
see that. I think that's
oh
hilarious.
man, yeah, yeah, I don't, but just those things would crack me up. And then at some point, I would have it do like a meme picture for me. So because it's catching my Teams and my emails, and it would be good just to search to find documents. The Copilot would be just that kind of stuff. So I feel like those are the use cases that I really enjoy just using professionally, just not using it like an assistant pretty much, because I knew it could find a document real quick. Yeah, yes, I knew it could. At a point, I would pull data, and I'm like, say I'm getting ready to present this. Is there like any holes you see or anything you glean from this information that I should share with my manager. And it would sometimes pull something that I didn't always note. It's just that kind of stuff, right? But I, like you said, I wouldn't have gotten there unless I fiddled around with it and just kind of see, well, can this do this? And the biggest issue that I've noticed is this hallucinates at times. You're like,
Mhm.
that number was not in the document I sent you. Where is this coming from? Right? And I noticed it more on the personal use than the professional use because it was like you can toggle work versus web on
Mhm.
Copilot versus Gemini is just like we're floating, you know? So, but anyways, did you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think hallucinations is a really important part of AI. And as people are getting into it, there's a saying that there should always be a human in a loop. Again, because of the convenience and ease of the information, it's very easy to start trusting the information. Like, oh, like, it got it right before, it's gonna get it right again. And the reality is AI hallucinates, which means it gives in false information. Sometimes it can give wrong information. Sometimes it can be based on how you prompt it. Sometimes it can be based on the availability of information it's able to find. But ultimately, you can't always trust this output. You still have to go back and verify sources and to really make sure that it is giving you what you need. I just went to a presentation a few weeks ago where I presented, and a lawyer spoke right after me, and he talked about a case where a lawyer use chat gpt to come up with like a case briefing, and it was making up fake cases that didn't
I
exist.
heard about this in my
Yeah.
training. Yeah.
So,
That's
those things
bananas.
happen. They happen, and you just have to really make sure, as someone who works, even for me as a business owner, it's something that I had to be very careful about, because that can tarnish your reputation or your credibility. So it's really just important to make sure that you're verifying that information, and to not take everything at face value. Like, you really just
Right.
have to do your research.
So you're kind of floating into the I want to talk about the good and the bad of AI. So you're kind of floating into the dangers of AI. Now, from your professional experience and from your research, like, is there any like a three part like this is the hot issues? Let me caveat for a second here before you get going. The reason I think I don't use ChatGPT is because I forget the guy, like the creator. He
Sam,
has shifty eye. What's his name?
Sam Altman.
Okay. He has shifty eyes to me. And I was just like, I don't know if I trust you. Mm, I'm not sure. But I'm like, I got a Google email. I'll just get on Gemini because I know, that interface, right? And so that I never tapped in because I was like, shifty eyes, no thank you. But I remember him sitting down with Oprah Winfrey and talking about like, and even I think the CEO of Microsoft, what's it, Gates? What's his name? Something Gates. He was also talking about the dangers of AI. And I think the CEO for Microsoft is basically saying he's the one that's kind of throwing out those thoughts. Well, jobs are going to change in X amount of years, jobs as we know it will be so different. So what do you view as that potential dangers of
Um,
AI?
well, the biggest danger that I'm most concerned about right now is, as a Black woman who is also simultaneously someone who is training people in AI. One of the things I saw a few weeks ago, one of my Facebook friends was talking about how, like, she is not using AI anymore because she wants a future for her son. And I knew what she was alluding to. There was an article that came out about just some of the things happening in Memphis, Tennessee with AI. I'm not sure if you're familiar, but essentially they're building data centers all over the country, but they're really building them, I think, in the backyards of Black and brown people in Memphis, Tennessee. And there's a lot of air pollution and just a lot
Hmm.
of things that are impacting people who typically come from underrepresented backgrounds. And
Hmm.
so that's kind of like my moral compass. Like, that's kind of
Yeah,
like, it's like I love to use these tools, but I can't help but wonder what is going to do to impact people, and
yeah,
specifically Black and brown people, because this is not, they call it, I just learned about this term like 5 years ago, environmental justice, right?
right.
People really have to fight for where they live and to make sure that people are not dumping, creating landfills behind their homes, or even now, like
Hmm.
creating these data centers for AI. I mean, and even for us in Ohio, there was a group of people who recently went to protest like the spike in electricity because they're building data centers in Ohio. And remember, I said I had that $250 bill?
$200.
Like allegedly, the spike in the spike in the rise of what we are paying is coming from the data centers. Like as consumers, for whatever reason, we're taking on the cost of having these things here. And while AI is great, and some people might be able to afford it, but the majority of the population can't afford those types of increases. An extra 50 or $60 bills could 60 extra 50 or $60 on bills
To a bill,
really
yeah.
can really take someone out of their element, or put
Hmm.
someone in a bad position. So those are the things that I talk about, or really that I think about. And I think that there are opportunities to fix these things. I know that in other countries, for example, like people are building different types of data centers. Like I think in one of the Asian countries, they're building like an underwater data center. You know,
Of
I
course.
don't know. I don't know how effective that's going to be because I'm like, what's going to
Yeah.
happen to fish? Like, like I don't know if there's trade-offs in different spots, but
Yeah.
needless to say, I do think that that needs to be looked at more.
Hmm.
Everyone's on this power grab. Everyone's on this race to be the top contender with AI. You talked about Sam Altman, Bill Gates, and all those people. You know,
Bill Gates.
yeah,
Thank you.
Elon Musk, like, they're all trying to be these top contenders in the race for AI, but we have to ask ourselves at what cost?
Costs. Yeah.
There are little things that I started to do like before, I used to be real polite to my AI because I would tell people like when they come, they not coming for me because I was nice. But, saying please and thank you, like that, it takes up energy, right? Like you'd be surprised of the little actions with prompting that can, really be impactful to the environment and how some of these machines work. So, even for myself, like I've started to think about, okay, like, do I really need to use AI for this? Like, what can I really do for myself? Like, even earlier this morning, I told you I was working on my book. I could have easily used AI to write my outline, but I did it myself, because it needed to come from me. And one thing that I think is important for people to understand is that in most cases, you can't prompt conviction. Like there are some things that has to come from you. I don't care how much you
Hmm.
can outsource it to a machine. There are some things that are not going to hit or resonate with other human beings unless it ultimately comes from you. And so,
Mm.
I think the takeaway for me is just now that I'm a super user, how do I reduce some of my consumption? Not just
Yeah.
for me not to become over reliant, but how do I reduce consumption so that, you know, just frivolous things that I'm looking for is not going to be the demise of the world. Like that's what I think about.
Right. Yeah. And talking to a vegan who's vegan for the planet, I totally understand what you're saying. And I feel like that the danger of what it could, but I have to just think what we eat and how much we rely on different types of, energy is that's a whole other subject. But also, you had already alluded to it about privacy. And then I'm weird about posting my daughter just on social media. So thinking to put it
Okay.
into a
And it's so
tool.
interesting. People our
Yeah.
age, like I find that a lot of my peers in our 30s, we come from the generation of social media because we were posting pictures like mad crazy. But now it's like the kids, people don't put their kids on the internet. And I think it's so fascinating, especially since we come from that. And I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Like, I think you should respect kids' privacy because, they might grow up and be like, Mom, why did you put me on online like that? But
Exactly.
I just think it's interesting coming from this generation that we don't do more of that.
Well, because then we know, because I got pictures of you when we was like 20, maybe 19, 20. You know what I'm saying? Like it goes back. But I think that the whole privacy and then who has the data and how it's being used in perpetuity, is that my word? Yes. That's another thing that scares me. It's just like, ooh. And not even the whole, well, they're gonna take my jobs. It's just like, but what is this data? Where is it? Like where it's up in the cloud, but who owns the cloud? You know what I mean? That kind of stuff is like, okay, we'll see. And I know there's no solve. We're just talking, right? But it's just something to think about while you're using it. And that's why when you're like, oh, you could put your photo up, I'm like, I could put my photo, but not hers. Because she
Yeah,
didn't approve
'cause
that. She didn't give her consent to that, right? Like we take her to the for swimming lessons. The first thing they say before she gets in the pool, they say, make sure your kid is okay with going in the pool. Like consent. That's why I don't really want to post her too much, right? But I weighed with every time someone sees her, she's such a light to them. And this is an aside, but like, so I kind of weighed back and forth with that. So we kind of hit on a little bit of the dangers, and I totally agree with you. Like again, we're jacking up our world just by a lot of things. But what is like the good that you're seeing? I know I kind of glazed over the concept of entrepreneurship and how AI may be able to help in that phrase, or even just learning a new skill. I've been trying to learn the piano, and I asked Gemini to just help me. I gave her very specific goals. I said, I want to learn a couple of songs to play for Christmas. And so she had me work on the basics of just, learning chords and blah, blah, blah. So I spent a month on that. And now we're in September. I need to revisit the plan because I think I'm gonna have to start getting into some more theory and songs like that. So that's how I've been kind of using it for good. But like, what are your thoughts about how AI can be used for good?
I think AI can be used for good in a couple of different ways. I mentioned the entrepreneurship piece, but I do really think it's a great equalizer. I've had great success working with people who applied for grants or loans, and we were able to use AI to help them with their narratives. So when they did present to someone, it sounded authentic and it allowed them to get into certain programs because they just didn't have the know-how to do it themselves, right? They were capable and definitely eligible, but all of us are not born with the gift of gab or with the gift of writing. So it's important to make sure that people are not locked out of opportunities based on what they just may lack personally, right? Um, Another way, AI for good, I use it as a studying partner. So I'm reading a book called The Science of Scaling, and I'm literally, talking to AI about the book, and AI is helping me like understand the book and make sure that I know the concepts, because the challenge is we live in a world where we have such a short attention span. So I find that as I get older, and I don't know if it's because I'm getting older or because I'm always on my phone or using technology, but it's
A
harder
little bit
for
of both with.
yeah, it's just harder for me to retain subjects because I'm always feeling like my mind is on to the next thing. And by
Hmm.
using that built-in tool, it's allowing me to really pause and like really retain the information that I'm learning. And I think it's also just helpful even for older people. I think about like our senior population, right? Like AI could be a great tool to help people understand if something's a scam or not, right? Like
Girl.
like they're really trying to get our seniors. They're trying to understand if it's a scam or not. And I've even seen AI help people with their financial situations. Like people have literally fixed their credit by saying, "Hey, this is my credit score. This is what I owe." And AI gives them a whole credit repair plan that they may not have been able to afford with another company. So I see a lot of good in it.
Yeah,
It
the
helps.
equalizer component. I think
It
you're
does.
spot on. I opportunities wise, job seeking, as I've mentioned, starting a new job, I used AI to tailor my resume a lot without having to go through it and spend the time to do it. So yeah, definitely the equalizing part. What did you have a thought? Because I had a question. I had another
No, no,
thought.
go ahead. Ask your question.
What would what would you say to someone that's skeptical of starting out? I think senior specifically, but just anyone that's just like, that's cute wit, but like, nah.
Um, I would ask that person, can they afford not to start? I think it's important for us to understand that whether we use AI or not, the world is going to keep turning and the technology is going to get stronger. I have a colleague at Northern Kentucky University who often jokes that we are in the flip phone era of AI. And that's true. And I feel like as women, especially for Black women, we often miss the opportunity to get in on the ground floor when things happen.
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
when cryptocurrency was popping. I mean, it's popping now. You still can get in, but there were people who made ton of money on Bitcoin at one
Yeah.
time when
I
they
regret
started,
selling.
when they
I
started,
didn't with the money though.
what was it, the web 2.0, whatever, like there are just certain milestones in history where we've missed the boat and we get on the boat too late. And by the time we get on, like if you look at like the phases of how people adopt things, like if we get too if we get on too late in the process, we don't reap the benefits that early adopters benefit from. So my advice for people who are skeptical is just to ask, like, what can you afford to lose? Because, let's say you don't get into AI, and let's say 5 years from now, let's say, God forbid, 5 years from now, you lose your job. And when you go to apply for things, everyone's asking, do you know how to use Chat GPT, Gemini? Do you have skills with artificial intelligence? And if you say no, you're putting yourself further and further behind the curve. It's really important to make sure that we're not leaving ourselves behind. Not knowing AI in some respect is almost the equivalent of not having a trade or a college education.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that's a well-known, and
Well,
it's,
that's deep, girl. But do you think it's like not knowing how to type on a keyboard?
I mean, yeah, I do. I
Yeah.
do. I
At
think,
the basics, you know what I'm saying? Because you said
yeah,
college education.
it's
I'm
the
like, well,
basics.
girl, it's like you need to know how to hit this,
It's the basics.
ping
Well,
to the
I
zero,
say
be a hero kind of vibe. Yeah.
Well, I say the college and trade because, like, I was watching a news report the other day and it was talking about like the climate of jobs right now. And, in this moment, um, jobs are hard to come by for a lot of
Yeah.
people. Everybody's not able to get into a new job or a new role easily. And one of the things that is trending is that they're not even asking for college education anymore. They're more so basing things on skills and experience. So even if you don't have, formal education, AI could again be a great equalizer for your career.
Equalizer. I think that's what's the name of this episode,
The great
AI, the
equalizer.
equalizer. No Queen Latifah. I'm screaming. Okay, as we're rounding this conversation up, is there anything you want to touch on before we hit our my game, our married dater dump?
No, you asked me a lot
I
of
did,
things.
and I appreciate your time.
I,
And
I
if this
do
is a
want to share.
two-parter,
Well, actually, I do want to share something really quick. Um, for those who are starting with AI. And I share this story often when I speak. I think it's important to know that there's a saying that garbage in, garbage out. AI is really contingent on our ability to communicate and how well we communicate. And I think AI will expose how well of a communicator you are, based on the outputs that you get. Because if you find that there are things that you are not getting, it may be related back to your communication style. So I'll give an example. So when I had the 14-year-old that was with me last year, I remember there was one time I said, "Hey, like, can you clean the kitchen for me?" And he's like, "Okay, Miss Whitney, I'll clean the kitchen." So, I go about my merry way. I come home. I'm thinking I'm about to have like a Mr. Clean moment. Everything's sparkly clean. I get to cook this lavish meal. And when I come home, the only thing that was done was literally the dishes. He didn't mop. He didn't scrub anything down. He didn't clean out the microwave. Like, he didn't do any of the things. And for me, I'm like, oh man, like he's being defiant. Like, why is he trying to play me? But he wasn't trying to play me. It was because I assumed that he knew what clean the kitchen meant for me. I assumed that because I had a certain expectation of what I wanted, that he would be able to understand my communication. Like he could read in between the lines. And he couldn't. And that moment in learning how to parent really taught me about AI.
mm,
AI is literally the same thing. Think of it as if it's a small child that you're dealing with. You have to give very explicit directions to small children or even teenagers to get the outcomes that you're looking for. So I would just say to, any moms, married moms out there, whoever, like, if you ever get frustrated with AI, just think about how would you explain it to a child?
yeah. I laughed really hard because a lot of times I'd say to my sister, "Oh yeah, I pulled this up on AI. Give me a little, this is what Gemini prompted out." And my sister would be like, "It did not say the same for me. Like, what is your prompt?" And I just think of how she's an accountant, I'm a writer, and I
Yeah.
just
And you
imagine
study communications.
Exactly. You know what I mean? I just exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking. So I giggled. So sorry, Melissa, but that might be why. Hey, girl, because I know you listen. Um, okay, very well. Well, Whitney, I got a couple questions for you. Let's play this quick game, and yes, and you have blessed me. So, marry, date, or dump? Which one you marrying? Which one you dating? Which one you dumping? I think this one you're not. I think I already know the answer to. Maybe I should put another one, but AI tools or the main AI brands, I guess we should say. ChatGPT, Gemini, Copilot. Which one you marrying? Which one you dating? Which one you dumping? I think I know the answer, but go ahead and tell me.
Me and ChatGPT go together real bad, so we
I
definitely.
know.
I date Gemini and Copilot. I dump because just because I don't use it. I don't use the email interface, and I don't care to use it. I find Microsoft products to be clunky sometimes, so I'm not a fan.
Accurate. Obviously my Gemini would be at the top. So, and I guess I would date the ChatGPT and the Copilot because I don't know no better. Okay. But since you had talked about like the authenticity, so kind of like a productivity sort of question. Paper or pen, voice memo, or just like notes app? Well, I guess
Dang,
notes
that's
app.
hard. That's hard. Um, ooh, where do I start?
Oh, Jesus, be offense.
I think that I marry the notes. I still write with, I do a lot of notes in my phone. Then I would date the voice. Voice is becoming prominent, but I don't think that's my go-to when I have a thought, especially when I have something really intelligent that I'm like, "Ooh, I need to write that down." I just normally go to my phone. Um, but I would date the paper and pen too, because like I still like I have a lot of notebooks. I have different notebooks for different stuff. So it's still relevant. I don't use it as much as as I used to. But even with the notebook, like when I write things down, I take a picture and I upload it in Chat GPT and say transcribe it and I put it in my notes so I don't lose it because I lose paper and pencil. I lose notebooks. So yeah, I would date both of them.
You know, you could get a notebook that you can write on, but then it transcribes it when you take a picture. You know,
Yeah,
that way
yeah.
you
My
can save
previous
paper.
supervisor had one. I need to get one
Yeah.
of those. I know
I
exactly what.
still Yeah, I still have, I don't know where it is, probably in the front room. Okay, I'm gonna give you the option. Do you want to do like a social media one or you want to do like a more professional one?
Social media.
Okay, I figured you would. Of course, I wrote that one out. Um, oh, I'm gonna be specific on this one though. YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, or TikToks.
Marry TikTok, date Reels, nothing with the shorts. Cause I don't
No
even
short.
I don't interact with it. I don't use it like that.
I like to watch a short because it can pop up on my
Like I go to
refrigerator.
YouTube to watch videos to
Long
learn
form.
forum content. I don't think they should have dabbled in that, but we could say that for another conversation.
Oh my gosh. So she says she's coming back. Whitney, thank you so much for chatting with me today. Please let my listeners and my viewers know how they can connect with you.
Hey y'all, you can connect with me on every platform at Whitney L. Barkley. You can visit my website at learnwithwhitney.com. I'm pretty available. I'm pretty accessible. So if you have any AI questions, please check it out. I do host AI classes virtually. So if you guys are interested in checking those out, you can find them on speakerazzi.com. So speakerazzi.com.
And you know that'll all be in the show notes for you. Okay, listeners and viewers, we are going to the positive tip, but Whitney, you stay right here. The positive tip. As much as I enjoy and love using these tools, and I believe Whitney would say the same thing, we have to be mindful and thoughtful of how we're using these tools, and we have to allow ourselves some time away from these tools. In my opinion, I think that is not relying on them solely. I realized the other day I was getting ready to say 75 times 2, and I don't know why I couldn't like just quickly be like, girl, I believe that's 150. Even if I had to do the dummy math where you break up the 50 and 50, 100 and the 225s together from the 75 remaining, just to put that together. Yes, sometimes that is how I do math. It is that young weird math, but it works for my brain. But just not being so reliant on these tools to be able to do a lot of things for us. Being able to open up a book, research it for ourselves. Recipes specifically is what I'm thinking of. Being able to just take pleasure of learning and reading just for the sake of it simply, and not having someone just spit out an answer in 30 freaking seconds. But there are some benefits, and I think as it continues to evolve, time will tell how it's really impacting regular people, working people. And I'm down for the ride, of course, but I am cautious. As always, thank you for listening. I appreciate you for listening and reviewing this episode. I hope you gained value. If so, please share with a friend. You can follow me on social media, Facebook and Instagram, and Ticket the Talk at Young Black Misses. And until next time, peace.